Hello friends! Welcome back to week 3. If you've already watched the sermon, this video is a little something extra, a behind-the-scenes add-on to give more context, dig a bit deeper into the history, and unpack a few of those questions that take some serious scripture hunting and a good dose of exegesis to answer. And no, I didn't just swear. Exegesis is a real word. It means learning how to properly study and interpret scripture. And trust me, the first time I had to do it in university, I sprouted a few new gray hairs that even my box of Nice and Easy couldn't hide. Only my hairdresser and I know the full cost of that assignment. But hey, wisdom comes with age, and apparently with term papers too. Now take a moment, close your eyes. Imagine this. A small clay oil lamp flickers in a crowded room. The smell of dust and olive oil hangs in the air. Someone unrolls a parchment and begins to read, Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to God's chosen people living as foreigners in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. 1 Peter 1:1. And just like that, the words of a fisherman from Galilee travel across an empire. Pretty impressive for a guy who probably still smelled faintly of seaweed. The gospel on foot, not by flight. The story of Jesus, the carpenter's son, spread through the ancient world not by broadcast or internet, but by footsteps and faith. When the Apostle Paul set out on his missionary journeys around AD 46-57, he didn't have planes, trains, or even a decent pair of Skechers. He had sandals, sailing ships, donkeys, and borrowed carts. He crossed deserts, climbed mountains, and faced storms at sea. He walked hundreds of miles through Roman provinces like Galatia and Asia, the very regions Peter would later write to. Acts 13 through 20 tell the story. Paul and his companions, Silas, also called Silvanus, Timothy, Luke, and others, traveled city to city, often setting up tents to sleep in or working as tent makers to pay for their pita bread. They preached in synagogues first, and when rejected, they turned to Gentiles, tradesmen, mothers, soldiers, slaves, merchants, anyone whose heart was open. And so the churches were strengthened in the faith and grew daily in numbers. Acts chapter 16, verse 5, NIV. It's likely in these travels that the good news first reached Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. The gospel rippled outward like water poured on dry ground, soaking into places Paul might never have seen himself. Peter's connection, a pastor to the scattered. By the time Peter writes his first letter, around AD 62 to 64, those churches had already been planted. Paul's work had paved the road, but now persecution was rising. Peter, now an older man, maybe in his mid-50s or early 60s, a lifetime away from the impulsive fisherman who once denied Jesus, here's what's happening. He's probably in Rome, which he calls Babylon, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 13, a polite way of saying this place is a mess. Though he might never have met these believers personally, his heart knew them. He knew their fear because he'd felt it. He knew failure because he'd lived it. He knew restoration because Jesus had given it to him on a beach one morning. So when Peter writes, it's not from a palace or a pulpit, it's from a pastor's heart. Dear friends, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you are going through, as if something strange were happening to you. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12, NLT. How were these letters written and delivered? Peter didn't write alone. He tells us, I have written and sent this short letter to you with the help of Silvanus, whom I consider a faithful brother. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 12. Now that's Silas, Paul's old travel buddy, the same guy who got thrown into jail with Paul for preaching too loudly, Acts chapter 16. He's now working with Peter, helping him put thoughts to parchment and likely delivering the letter himself. Picture Silas rolling that scroll up, tucking it into a leather satchel, and setting sail from Rome to the port of Ephesus, a 1,300-kilometer journey without air miles or in-flight peanuts. From there, he'd travel inland, reading Peter's words aloud in tiny house churches filled with potters, shepherds, mothers, and merchants. Some wept, some smiled. All felt seen. Let me tell you that ministry was never a solo act. We tend to think of the apostles like lone superheroes. But the truth is, ministry back then was more like a team road trip. Paul had Silas and Timothy. Peter had Mark and Silvanus. Even Jesus had a whole crew and probably someone in charge of snacks. Someone had to cook the meals, patch the tents, mend the sandals, and guard those precious parchments from wind and rain. The gospel didn't travel on fame, it traveled on friendship. How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. Romans chapter 10, verse 15. Even if those feet were tired, dirty, and blistered, they were holy. Why these letters mattered. Back then, there was no neatly bound Bible, just a collection of letters making their way from home to home. Some were lost, others were hidden. Every surviving letter was a miracle. That's why Peter's words were so precious. They weren't meant for debate or display. They were spiritual survival mail, words of courage to cling to when the empire turned cruel. And somehow, by grace, those same words found their way across centuries, right to us. Still unrolling, still whispering, still true. Let's take a moment to work through a sore chat with letters that still speak. Stop and sit. Picture yourself in that small house, listening to Silas read Peter's words for the first time. What would you have felt? Relief, hope, goosebumps? The same Spirit who inspired Peter's words still speaks through them today. Reflect and respond. How can you be someone's Silas this week in carrying hope to a weary heart? 2,000 years later, Peter's letter still crosses oceans, time zones, and coffee tables. It reminds us that the gospel doesn't need perfect people, just willing ones. People who show up, who share the message, and who don't mind getting a few gray hairs along the way. Because the story of the carpenter's son is still being told, and somehow, by grace, you and I get to be part of it. So go with God and always stay spicy. I'm Reverend Peggy, your pastor on a park bench,